Hi, I'm Naeem Latif, and welcome to this Wednesday edition of the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. Can Black history be taught without blame, shame, or guilt? Well, let's talk about it. Give us a call, 515-605-9325. We'll be joined in just a moment with our co-host Kareem Hamid as we get ready for the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. And we want you to call in and comment 515-605-9325.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio. Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution. Join me, Naima Latif, every morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, as we bring you stimulating discussions about the issues affecting our lives. If you're listening online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution, press the blue button that says follow and get our daily topics every morning directly to your email and your smartphone. Hi, I'm Naima Latif, executive producer of the Female Solution Radio Show. We invite you to call in 515-605-9325 and participate in this daily think tank as we examine the challenges we face and develop solutions that restore peace and harmony. We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, ni hao. In India, namaste. In Japan, konnichiwa. In Korea, annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, здравствуйте. In Germany, guten Tag. In Poland, dzień dobry. In France, bonjour. In Spain, hola. In Italy, ciao. In Egypt, ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, akwaba. In Nigeria, peleo. In South Africa, sawubona. In Senegal, mangadet. In Kenya, jambo. In Israel, shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Saudi Arabia, assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all. Hi, I'm Naima Latif. Join me and my co-host Kareem Hamid every Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on the Female Solution Radio Show, as we explore that relationship that is the foundation for our society, the relationship between men and women, husbands and wives. Join our discussion as we seek to repair broken family ties and rebuild our community. Listen online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution. Call in and comment 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to our host. Or you can join us live on Facebook at www.facebook.com/the-female-solution.
Grand Rising, and thank you all for being with us. And we'll be right back to be joined by our co-host, Kareem Hamid, as we ask the question this morning: can Black history be taught without blame, shame, or guilt? We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Female Solution Global Radio TV show invites you to an invigorating conversation with our team of hosts Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Start your week with Monday Morning Mindfulness with Zelda Speaks, Tuesdays, self-cell care with Jody Susan. Wednesdays, repairing broken families with Naima Latif and co-host Kareem Hamid. Thursdays, soulful solutions with Dr. Debbie Green. And Fridays, health and well-being with Beata. Saturdays, tune in 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. First Saturday, Success Strategies with Jana. Second Saturday, Wendy Williams Esquire on relationships. Third Saturday, Move Around with Deborah. And fourth Saturday, Wisdom with Mama D. Join us Sundays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time for Soul Purpose Healing with Beata. Call in and comment 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to the host and be a part of the solution. Walaikum salam to all of our American Muslim 360 family. And of course, it's always a pleasure to be joined by my co-host, Brother Kareem Hamid, and to pick the minds of our listeners as we seek to raise global consciousness. And of course, we always enjoy the men-only discussions. And next month, the fourth Saturday will return. The fourth Wednesday again will return with our men-only discussion to give you all an opportunity to hear exclusively from the men. Today, we want to address an issue that has created a bit of a stir. A few days ago, former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, in her being a guest on The View TV show, they were talking about critical race theory and the whole thing about how to teach about the unpleasant things that have happened between blacks and whites in this nation and around the world. And her statement was that we shouldn't teach history in a way that makes white children feel guilty. And, there was a bit of a debate that ensued. And of course, those who are of African descent feel deeply that people, not only whites, but all people who are in the public school system, the school system period, should learn what happened. Because a lot of immigrants don't know what happened. They're wondering, why are you people still angry? Why can't you get yourself together economically? And so there isn't an understanding of the foundation of this country and why there's such extreme inequality and civil unrest. But then there are others who say we have been holding on to this victim mentality for too long. We need to let it go. We need to stop blaming other people for the faults that we have and work on getting rid of those faults, work on getting rid of the violence, the crime, the poverty, and stop blaming white people and making them feel like they're doing something wrong if they're successful. So we need to have a way that we can tell what happened in a way that empowers people to change things that need to be changed. But we want to talk about how to do that, because apparently many teachers don't know how, and many parents aren't doing it in the home because they don't know how. And many young people are feeling frustrated because they know something is wrong, but they don't really know what happened that got us to this point. So we want to really come up with some solutions, some suggestions, and even some guidelines on how to present what happened and how to anticipate the emotions that's going to create in that. Now, one thing I want to throw out there, and you all can respond and tell me what you think. I have a friend who is living in a community that's predominantly white. And she told us of a story of her son, who was the only black child in the class. I think he was in something like maybe fourth grade at the time. And the teacher decided to teach about slavery and, what happened in America and how the black people were treated and, the beatings and all of that. And he came home from school one day and he was so upset. He was just enraged and crying and, angry and agitated. And she finally asked him what happened. And so he broke down and told her that the teacher was teaching all about slavery and how bad he felt. And of course, he's the only black child in the classroom and everybody's looking at him like, oh, your people, they went through that. But he felt bad. And so she felt like, well, maybe this shouldn't be taught if it's upsetting my son. So she went up to the school and she requested that the teacher, if you're going to teach about this and teach about racial things, please, set my son aside and have him do some other work or, put him in another classroom or some other activity so he's not feeling that he's the center of attention and he's made to feel bad because of his being different and then having to hear about what happened in a way that may cause him some shame or feelings of inferiority or anger. So this is, I think, what they chose to do. During that period of the history lesson, they would send him out of the classroom to do some other activity, and he wasn't subjected to that experience again. So I want you all to tell me what you think about that. And how should it be handled? How should the history of what happened to African people who were forcibly brought to this country be taught? And should you make adjustments if there's only one or two black children in a whole classroom that might be made to feel even more isolated and different? Or can you have a discussion in a mixed setting? And what if there's just white children? Is there a different way to teach the history? And is there a way to teach the history of what happened and all the atrocity without making white children feel guilty for being white? So we want you to give us a call, 515-605-9325 or 515-605-9891, and press 1 to let us know you have a comment, and we'll share your thoughts. So, Brother Kareem, what are your thoughts? I don't know. I know that there are black areas of St. Louis and white areas of St. Louis, and maybe some that might be kind of mixed, and you might have some people who've had those different experiences. What are your thoughts on how you teach about what happened? And should it be taught in a way that doesn't sound so bad? Because I've heard some people say that, we shouldn't refer to the enslaved people as being slaves. We should refer to them as being immigrants so that they don't feel like they're any different than other immigrants. What do you think about that?
Oh, boy, excuse me. Education is very, very valuable. History is very valuable. All right, let's deal with the history of voting rights in this country. How it was structured to prohibit African American people from voting. They had what was called a poll tax, and they came up with all kinds of silly, ludicrous tests that you would have to answer before you could vote. How many bubbles?
Borrow soap.
How many jelly beans? Yes. How many jelly beans is in this jar? Okay, taking note of that and working toward removing the right idea. Well, everything has leveled out now. Everything has changed. Everything is fair now. So let's list those sanctions. That sanctions was kind of a watch list of certain states, certain counties. They watched them to make sure that there was no barriers put in place to prohibit and exercise. The Supreme Court removed those sanctions, and immediately we see they are implementing procedures to prohibit and weaken the number of black voters. There are certain states and counties that are prohibiting voting on Sundays. That is directly aimed at souls to polls. They have limited how many election voting sites can be in one county. It can be one site in a county of thousands. And even went so far as to say it was illegal to hand someone a bottle of water as they are standing.
Yes.
So, if these things are now, there must be a connection. We must make the connections as to why this is happening. Why? Where did it get its root at? So we need to educate ourselves and the public also as to those measures that was put in place to prohibit the right of African Americans to vote in this country. Many people lost their lives just for going to register to vote. The public needs to know that. Our children need to be educated along those lines so that they do not, and when I say our children, I'm not just talking about African American children. I'm talking about children in this country. They need to be educated as to what took place so that thing never happens, so that does not happen again. So people are somewhat caught flat-footed, but they shouldn't be. This is history. These are historical things that actually happened, and they were so horrendous that we should educate our citizens so that we never go through that scourge of slavery, of lynchings, and burning people, tying a man to a stake, putting wood around. That happened. That was a fact. That was a fact. So I'm for. Let's give the history the light of day. It is a prohibited measure. It is not to beat someone with that stick. It is education. It is utilized to prohibit that from ever happening again. And it is an explanation of what is occurring currently in our lives. Why would someone put their knee on George Floyd's neck? We saw that. That shocked many people.
Yes.
That shocked many people. So we have to visit our turbulent past. And then that will explain our current situation. And will hopefully, inshallah, God willing, prohibit that type of treatment of human beings ever again in this country. the Jewish community have a right to educate everyone as to what happened to them in the Holocaust in Germany. They have a right to do that. And they say never again. Never again. And I believe that we have the right to not let our history get swept under the rug, and we not educate all of us to the horrors of slavery. There is so much that took place, and we are still real. Like, believe it or not, I don't care how educated you are, I don't care what kind of car you drive, I don't care what your zip code is. There is a possibility that you have been negatively affected by the idea and the thought and the thinking of white supremacy. So we have that lingering ether hanging over the head of this country, in the air, in the environment, in how we structure our lives, the systems of how it is structured, came from out of white supremacist thinking. How come they call a factory a plant? It's set up like a plantation. So that system is still here. I'm even hearing young Caucasian, Asian, Puerto Ricans, you name it, that live in this country, they are saying something is wrong with the system. The system is still in place. There's something wrong here. The system has to be fixed. So we're still operating under that's a system that has saved people based upon skin color. We're still operating and affected by that system. So education is not designed, and for real, I want to equate how my great-great-great-grandmother felt. And we won't do it because we're concerned about how someone else will feel.
Well, now let me throw this thought out there.
Get over your feeling.
Let me throw this thought out there because I've heard.
We need this honest and open educational process so that this nation can live up to its promises, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by God with certain inalienable rights. And among these rights is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is the promise held out. We are not there yet, but we have to correct the structure. The structures must reflect that. The thinking must reflect that. Our system must reflect that. How we feel within our hearts should reflect that. So yes, education is a very valuable tool so that we correct the ills in the lives of human beings. Our lives are just as valuable as anyone else's. The indigenous people in this country, they have not forgotten. They educate their children. The Trail of Tears, the forced march from Florida to Oklahoma. So no, we must be willing, be courageous enough, have the courage to make a fearless inventory into our history in this country, so that the structure can be repaired, and over time the thinking can be repaired and our souls will be healed.
Well, let me throw this thought out.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me throw this thought out that I hear from whites, young whites often, especially if they grew up in integrated communities where they have Black friends who come from, working class, middle class, or even affluent families. And they're saying, I don't understand how people are blaming slavery. And I have friends and their house is just as big as mine. And, they're able to go to the same school I'm able to go to. I don't think all of that exists anymore. So why do we have to keep talking about it? All it does is just get people angry again. And the way they have experienced life, they have not experienced, or they don't perceive that they have experienced any incidences of racial inequality or injustice. It seems to them that those who are involved in negative behavior, criminal behavior, theft, shootings, things that happen in the lesser affluent communities, their perception is these people bring this on themselves. If they would just work hard, go to school, get an education, work toward getting a good job, and take care of their families, then they could get out of this situation. They caused that. They're the ones having all these babies they can't raise, and then they want to blame the government and have people take care of them. And they're doing this to themselves. Why should we have to keep being made to feel like it's our fault because we worked hard? And and I've heard this argument from some friends who maybe they're just the second generation that's been born, or maybe even the first generation has been actually born here in America. And they say, well, my parents were immigrants and they came here with nothing and they built businesses and they worked hard. And I don't understand how come you people can't do the same thing. We kept our family together. We didn't have a bunch of babies out of wedlock. And we went to school, and English wasn't even my first language, but I struggled through it, and I excelled and went to college and started a career. And my father worked hard, and he came here and drove a cab, and he earned the money to put me to school. And my mother, she worked hard and made a home for us. And I don't understand how come you people can't do it, because we didn't have anything when we came here, and we just worked hard. And now, my parents are successful. I'm able to be a success, and we just did the right things. And you could have done the same thing and you didn't. So why are you still blaming white people? And we're not even the ones that were in slavery. So we're involved in that. So you can't just blame all white people. If we did it, you could have done it. I hear that a lot from immigrants from various countries.
If they feel if you are a so-called liberal Caucasian and you are my friend, then you should want to know my history. The same way as I learned your history, if you are my friend, what prohibits you from becoming familiar with my bloodline? I'm just as important as you. And the Homestead Act, after removing indigenous people from out of states in the West, the government gave land to Caucasian people.
Yeah.
And even educated them on how to make the land productive. The African Americans owned land in the South, owned farms. And they were burnt out and chased away. Land just took from them. There's nothing. We need to know that. We need to know that. And to my liberal friends, redlining still exists. Getting bank loans to purchase homes, there's a different interest rate. Why? And if working hard was labor. They were artisans, machinists, carpenters, stonemasons, mathematicians. So if it was just due to hard work, we would be rivaling Bill Gates in wealth. But there was a system put in place. And let me speak to this. The progress of a people is not just gauged by material accumulation. The health of a person is not just gauged by material acquisition. We were damaged in the vital areas that completely emptied out, and damaged in vital areas that are key in sustaining a healthy human life.
But are we wallowing in it instead of pulling ourselves out of it? And I guess that is
What's wrong with education? Look, what's wrong with it? It's not wallowing. People act as if we are, woe is me. No, Africans or Americans are making great strides in this country, in spite of whatever.
So is it time to let go of that? There's
nothing wrong with educating as a significant part of the history of this country. Why would someone fear education?
Well, now
it's not wallowing. History is history.
So now, what about what?
Tell a Holocaust survivor to stop educating their and not just their children. They educate the public at large. The whole world knows their story.
Yes.
And not only do they say never again, the majority of people say never again. That shall never happen on our watch. Never again. So it is the same with the proper education concerning our soldier in this Western world. So that the human being comes to the intelligent conclusion, never again.
So
why are we afraid of education?
Well, now we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to ask the question, what if it's the Black students who feel bad when that history is taught, particularly in a predominantly white classroom? And what if it's they that request that it not be discussed because it makes them feel bad? It makes them feel as if there's something defective about them. And what if they make the request? We don't need to talk about it. How do we address it? We're going to take this break and we'll come back and answer that question. How should we be sensitive to the feelings of a child who is perhaps the only one in a classroom and having their history seen as different as the history of the Pilgrims and all of that that's been taught, and you're the one that came here as slaves? How does it make you feel if you're the only Black child in the classroom during that lesson? We'll talk about that when we come back. And if you're listening online and want to join this conversation, give us a call, 515-605-9325. If you're on our switchboard now, just press 1. That'll light your number up and let us know you have something to say. We've asked the question, can Black history be taught without blame, shame, or guilt? What do you think? We'll be right back after this quick break, so stay with us.
Charge of your health. I'm Bianca, your holistic life coach, and every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, I'm here on the Female Solution to empower you to make choices that will assist your evolution to abundant health. I'm also blogging every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight mindful conversation on higher learning. Zelda speaks for your Monday morning mindfulness session on Blog Talk Radio, the Female Solution, Mondays, 7:30 until 9 a.m. Be sure and send your ideas, thoughts, comments, and suggestions. Also, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, visit zeldaspeaks.com and send us your info. We'd love to have you. Experience mindfulness moments with the mindfulness/stress relief coach, Zelda Speaks. And thanks for sharing the mindfulness moment tip of the day. Stay on purpose, stay empowered, and stay tuned to your next session of mindfulness on higher learning with Zelda Speaks. Make it a mindful day. And thanks for listening. What if you could live to be 120 years old and remain active, healthy, alert, and vibrant? Our bodies are made up of cells that are constantly rejuvenating. So if we take proper care of ourselves, we can literally defy aging. Join us every Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time to learn about self-care from Tucson Essentials on the Female Solution Blog Talk Radio Show. Learn how to help your body and yourself feel rejuvenated each day through proper nutrition, sleep, frequency medicine, and many unconventional methods of self-care. I'm Jody Tucson. Join me and my amazing guests by calling in at 515-605-9325 and press 1 to speak. We'll help you achieve a breakthrough in your health today.
And we are back. You're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. I'm Naeem Latif, your host, and we're joined with our co-host, Kareem Hamid, and our American Muslim 360 family. We've got a whole global family listening and learning as we ponder the question today: can Black history be taught without shame, blame, or guilt? Now, there are things that happen that are pretty horrifying to hear about. There are lynchings, there are killings, there are brutalities. Now, one thing that happened, and I think I mentioned this on somebody's show a few days ago, the movie Sankofa. It's a very powerful film, very graphic film. Now, my child went to Betty Shabazz International Charter School, and they very much focus on African-centered education and teaching what happened. And we had a school-wide field trip in which we took them to the theater to see the show Sankofa. Now, the thing about it, we adults, we meant the best. We wanted our children to understand what happened so we could talk about it and help them understand, as you said, why things are unequal. Just about a year or so ago, my daughter confessed to me that experience traumatized her because of the graphic violence. I think she was maybe in maybe 4th grade at the time. And, we just didn't think this might be inappropriate for younger viewers because we were trying to be Black. We wanted to show the African history. It didn't occur to us that some of those scenes might have been age inappropriate based on the fact that children get highly upset when they see acts of violence. And I don't know but I remember I was that way when I was a child. I'd be very distressed at violence. And we are not sensitive to that because we're wanting, okay, this is what happened. But to feel that at 9 years old, that's pretty intense. Even though we know today's youngsters, they see very graphic violence on the news all the time. But is there a way to teach this, and is there a way to approach this at certain age levels? And should we be sensitive to the fact that some of the things that happened were traumatizing and maybe shouldn't be talked about until there's an appropriate age where it can be dissected and discussed? Uh, and like I said in the beginning of the show, I think my friend's son was about in fourth grade when he was in the classroom. He was the only black in the class, only black male, and just was literally traumatized by the discussion. So, I mean, what do you think about that? And I've got a couple of comments from our Facebook family, and of course, our Thursday host Debbie Green says Grand Rising, and Grand Rising to you, sister. We appreciate you. Beata, our Friday host, also says Grand Rising, and she says dark-skinned people have both Native and African heritage. They should learn American history, which includes both. Now, that's a very important point as well, because both of those histories have been pretty brutal, like you say, the Trail of Tears and all of that. So is there a specific age in which this history should be discussed, and is there a way to discuss it with younger children, like kindergartners, when you're talking history? Or should we just keep it all positive until they get to maybe middle school? I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, you wouldn't introduce algebra to a preschool student. Being aged and emotionally immature emotionally should be considered. So it's a great matter of fact. All knowledge is unveiled gradually. Gradually. Our curriculum, the public school curriculum, I'm talking about high school and even at the college level. Someone makes the decision as to what the curriculum will be. See, the student doesn't write out the curriculum. The parents don't write out the curriculum. So I would believe that if there are well-meaning people that write the curriculum, that they would be sensitive to age-appropriate information. But when you reach the level, the university level, and the college level, you are becoming a very important part of the society in which we live. And in a lot of cases, you may shape our future. So it is very important that we educate ourselves concerning true American history. There's nothing wrong with that, with education. Why is education so important? So that we can chart our course forward with enlightenment and not still not stuck in the barbaric
So let me ask this question then. Say from preschool, kindergarten to say third grade, how should we discuss what happened? You know, I remember like kindergarten and first grade, you know, like Thanksgiving time, you do the little turkey drawings and talk about the pilgrims and how, you know, the native people were so friendly to the Europeans who came here, Christopher Columbus and all that business. Well, what really happened, it was really kind of a brutal thing. But that's what happened, you know. And the reality is that Christopher Columbus never landed on North America at all. He was only in the Indies. That's why it's called the West Indies, because he thought he was in India. But he landed in the islands. He did not come to the mainland at all. He was never here. And that's the truth of what happened. So, but then when we were children, we learned that the happy thing, you know, and the lesson is, well, they shared their food. They showed them how to grow corn and showed them how to survive in the winter. And it's such a nice, happy story because you're trying to teach young children about sharing. So at that age, do we teach, you know, what happened? Because it's not pretty. If we're trying to help instill those higher values of hospitality and friendship and love as their foundation. Because if you teach them that in the beginning, and then later on, you know, in fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade, they learn that here this man came and cut off people's. You lied to them. Here this man that came and cut off people's arms and hands to make them force them to mine for gold and all that brutal things that happen. So, you know, how do you teach it when they're young, or do you not teach the niceties, or do you teach both at that age? Is there a way to teach what happened that doesn't sound so bad? Or should you just tell what happened? What do you think? Well, let's take a caller. Let's get a thought. We got a call on the line, and then we'll explore that.
We have two on the AM 360 switch.
Okay. Because I mean that's if you got children in school, you really want to, because Thanksgiving's coming up. They're going to teach it some kind of way. How do we tell the truth and not traumatize the children? Let's go to area code 779-801, and then we'll take your callers over on that switchboard. 779-801. Grand Rising. Give us your name, where you're calling from, and your thoughts.
Rising. This is Maika. How's everyone doing?
Hey, Maika, we are fantastic. Thank you for calling.
Wonderful. I love your topic, of course, as a historian.
Yes.
And I was able to hear some of the things that were said in the first half an hour, and I want to respond to some of that. You know, when we talk about white supremacy, and so often people believe when you talk about the white supremacy system that you're literally talking about white people because of where white is in. You're color conscious, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what white supremacy is. White supremacy is a modern day name for violence, a violent system. And violent systems have existed throughout the history of mankind. So I want to be clear. I want to be clear about that. That we're talking about violence. Okay, now, in terms of the winnings of the nonviolent movement of the 60s, and I want to be clear about that too, that the civil rights movement existed long before the nonviolent movement interjected itself into this cause of liberating Black people and removing the barriers to just basic human living. But the nonviolent movement was something specific. When the nonviolent movement came about, change came about. There was no longer the bickering, but the movement itself, the applying the teachings of Yeshua, Jesus, to the situation is what changed it. Because the nonviolent movement is nothing but the Sermon on the Mount of Jesus applied to modern day problems. It is a system that is founded on the tenet of universal love.
That's what it is.
Yes.
So when it is applied in a situation, and it is knowing, love finds a way to be constructive. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it was nonviolence or love applied to the problems that African American people were up against that brought about change. So that's what opened the doors of freedom for African American people. Love. Now, it stands to reason. Anybody who knows math, because that's what I'm understanding now, that when you don't know math, you can't calculate, you can't see, you can't forecast. You know, you just don't have no reasoning. Math teaches you all that. That's why so much violence out here, because people don't know math. It stands to reason that which opened the door for you is that which will keep the doors open for you. But we as a people, as a nation, abandoned the love principle. We said, I'm not going to be loving. I'm not going to be nonviolent. But nonviolence is what brought you the changes. Now, the first premise in terms of having opened the doors for yourself with love is, now you know, everybody knows that you've been violated. You've been abused. You don't just become actively understanding of what you're up against because now the doors of freedom are open. No, you got to heal those injuries of abuse that you engaged in. Those injuries are emotional bound. Emotions are designed to drive the intellect when you're dealing with love, and it's creative in nature. Not emotions, however, when toxic, when you don't take the time to move to love. I'm talking about toxic emotions, hate, anger, fear, all those things. They drive the body to do things that you live to regret. That's why the jails are full right now. Oh, I just got angry. I didn't think about what I was doing, what the consequences of my anger. You know?
Yes.
So you have to heal those emotions so that your emotions are directed properly to create that which you really need. That's slums and ghettos. You know, that's what we are now. Slums and ghettos. That's what we create. Whether it's in our neighborhoods or in our homes. There's a lot of slum ghetto stuff is engaged in the home. People aren't just in the home. People aren't loving in the home. When slaves came when people came out of slavery, their highest ideals was to live like the Europeans were living. Even though the Europeans were the slave masters, we mobbed our families by them.
Right.
We didn't
good or bad, yeah.
The violence was at the feet of the family of the European because we were wanting to come from under the violence externally as much as we could. But that's the nature of their foundation in their home, violence. But we didn't really structure families. We just structured our little bloodline. You know, this is my daughter, this is my brother, this is my father. But no universal principles were applied to the development of anything by African American people. You ain't loving your mother.
Well, do you think though?
You don't have joy and happiness in your life, and that's what we have to get to. So all this violence is a result of African American people not applying nonviolence, again, the science of love, to the situations that abound them, and healing themselves of the abuses that they had experienced for generations and generations. Well, I just want to also, before I stop, I want to say that I'm doing some spiritual healing here in Chicago up until Friday at Good Foods Health Center, and that's at 1966 East 73rd Street. And anybody want to come out and be asking for a free will donation?
So,
you can schedule that at 480-9580.
You want to say that number again? Micah, can you say that number again and also give us the Give us the cross street on was it 19 something East?
312 480 9588. And that's 1966 East 73rd Street, right off Jeffrey and
Okay,
73rd
Jeffrey.
Street. Good
Okay.
Health Center. Come on out, meet the proprietor, and have some good food while you at it.
And what time will that be?
Well, you schedule it. You have to schedule the appointment. You can come by the store at any time. If I'm available, I'll help you. But if I may be with a client, so it's
okay.
scheduled.
All right. Well, sounds great. Well, we look forward to seeing you Friday. Yes, definitely. All right. My ego.
And we're doing some wonderful healing here at the store and the health center next door. Because when we're teaching people how to heal themselves more than anything, to release the feelings that was set in place by this violent system, because there's an understanding you have to have. Like with a baby, when they train elephants for the circus, they take a baby elephant and they teeter it to a pole.
Yes.
When the baby elephant pulls, you can't pull the pole up.
Right.
But he kept on trying to pull as a baby and never was successful. So when he gets big, he don't even try to pull no more. He can pull it out with a snap.
Yeah.
When he get old. But a feeling has been set on him so that now he doesn't even try anymore. And that's where most of us are. We are still under the ceiling when there are infinite possibilities for us in life. And so it's like,
that's a good point.
Spiritual healing is about removing those feelings so that you can experience and journey into infinite possibilities that life has for you. That's where we have to go as a people.
Yes.
Thank you, Camilla. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. Well, I am so grateful that you called in. Kareem, she said some very key things. We've got another caller, but we probably go to break, and then 314-677 will come to you. But I want to take a look at some of the things she said, especially in creating that first foundation of ethics and values based in love, based in mutual respect, based on non-violence, and then categorizing what behavior is good, and desirable and for the betterment of people, and what behavior is not good and desirable and for the betterment of people. And I think if I were to design a curriculum, and which we're in the process of doing that now, I would say that the foundation that should be laid in preschool and kindergarten are ethics and values based on those principles. First, teaching the principles of sharing, kindness, compassion. Teach the principles, and then as we talk about what happened, I think it has to also be coupled with a discussion of whether or not this behavior meets those principles. And I think you can have that kind of discussion with a kindergarten class. You could talk about when the people came from Europe and the people who were here shared with them. Was that a good thing? Well, yes, it was. And then we can eat, but then, we're going to take a break, and then we'll talk about, okay, after you've talked about the good that was done, how do you approach the ungood? How do you approach the not nice behavior? And how graphically do you get at a young age? Or should you not talk about it until they're much older, but then they are experiencing bad things in their lives? So how can you help them process some things that they may be experiencing even at a young age and instill principles? We'll talk about that when we come back. We'll get your thoughts, Brother Kareem. And of course, we get your callers on your switchboard. And we want to hear from you. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, feel free to write in your comments. You can go to www.facebook.com/thefemalesolution and see us right there. And if you want to call in, 515-605-9325 or 515-605-9891. and press 1 so we know you have something to say. And we'll be right back after this quick break. So we want you to stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back in a moment. So stay with us. The Female Solution Global Radio TV Show invites you to an invigorating conversation with our team of hosts Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Start your week with Monday Morning Mindfulness with Zelda Speaks. Tuesdays, Self-Cell Care with Jody Susan. Wednesdays, Repairing Broken Families with Naima Latif and co-host Kareem Hamid. Thursdays, Soulful Solutions with Dr. Debbie Green. And Fridays, Health and Wellbeing with Beata. Saturdays, tune in 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. First Saturday, Success Strategies with Jana. Second Saturday, Wendy Williams Esquire on relationships. Third Saturday, Move Around with Deborah. And fourth Saturday, Wisdom with Mama D. Join us Sundays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time for Soul Purpose Healing with Beata. Call in and comment 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to the host and be a part of the solution. And we want you to listen in tomorrow. Join us for Dr. Debbie Green for Soulful Solutions.
Are you constantly arguing with your spouse? Are your children misbehaving and acting out? Someone in your family needs love? Have you been living with the best life? Are you grieving over the loss of self-life? Let us help you restore serenity to your life. At Serenity Family Social Services, we understand that good mental health is the result of emotional well-being. Our goal is to assist you and your family in removing emotional distress and restoring harmony and balance to your lives. We offer individual, couples, and family counseling. I'm Howard Williams, CEO of Serenity Family Social Services. Call today 312-315-4820. That's 312-315-4820.
Tune in to Global Solutions with Dr. Debbie Green on Thursdays at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time and 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear great topics and stories on grief and turn it into victory. Join Dr. Debbie Green to listen to stories of triumph and learn how to overcome. You are not alone in your life, and there is hope in the darkest hour. This is your time to learn strategies and solutions to improve your life. It's your time. So join Dr. Debbie Green with Global Solutions and call in on Thursday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time and 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at 515-605-9325 for comments and questions. Look to hear from you real soon.
And we are intro music here. All right. Okay. We are back. You're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV Show. I'm Naima Latif, executive producer and host on Wednesdays, along with my co-host Kareem Hamid, and the American Muslim 360 family is joining us live every Wednesdays, and we are so grateful to get an opportunity to get all of your thoughts. So, Kareem, you've got a couple callers on your switchboard. You want to give them an opportunity to share their thoughts?
Okay. Area code 724-866. Welcome to the Female Solution.
Check your mute on your phone.
724-866. Unmute your phone.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. I did have my phone.
Oh, okay.
I recognize that voice.
Yeah. And you always seem to say what I'm going to say. But just as a retired educator from the educational system, I think what everyone is saying is there are age appropriateness for everything, every level, and every subject matter that we teach, and laying the right foundation for our children. Always, what is the outcome that we want to have? Do we want it to be hate?
Oh.
Like the thing. Or do we want it to be love? But the main ingredient, usually in the classroom, is the teacher or the educator that's in there.
Yeah.
It's how that's so important. And also the curriculum, that is age appropriate. And those are just the things, just, as I'm listening, everyone's really saying no already. That, we don't want to traumatize any of the children in what we teach to them and educate them in the knowledge. If we're trying to remake the world, we don't always have to. We can teach the past, and we want to bring the good forward and leave the bad back there. So we do have to be very, very careful. And I think with the new attention towards critical race theory, it is something that has been in high academic, and it's being, we have to be careful that the tools that are being used and the timeliness of it trickling down then into the educational systems of our children. And because those people that are in high academic that are the ones that are going to be setting the curriculum and setting the standards that we want our children to strive to accomplish. So I'm just, I guess, calling to confirm that, we know, and what you are expressing, I think, is the attitude of people that want change, but we want change to be for the better and not for the worse. Too many times our students are angry, and so we have to be very careful as educators in that classroom how we deal with their anger and just so on, even the whole system.
Well, let me ask you this question. I'm sorry. Let me ask you this question as an educator. When you do have to address sensitive things, you've got, like Kareem saying, we taught about the Holocaust. I think that's even a law you have to teach about it. It's history. It's what happened. It was major, part of the World War II and all of that. And with the whole emphasis on never again. But there also are other people who have had these major traumatic things happen. The Native Americans, the genocidal behavior of that. Of course, what happened with African people. And I know that some children hearing these things will feel anger because they're in the midst of the descendants of the people that participated. Whereas even if say a Jewish child in America is in a classroom, there are no Germans in the classroom per se directly. So it's not like you have the people who did this in the room with you to focus hate on them. So they're a little more removed, whereas we're, still all together. How did you as an educator, and how do you deal with historic things that have happened or even current things that are happening when there is violent behavior between races? How do you talk about it and teach about it without generating the anger and the hatred of your students toward each other or toward those of other races? How do you do it?
Well, I was only, basically, I was in the elementary school. So a lot of those issues did not come up. I taught from first to third grade, but I interacted all through because, as you try to make your way into the educational system, sometimes you have to climb the ladder. And one of those ways is being a substitute teacher. And I did substitute at all levels as a substitute teacher. But when I got hired as elementary. And it's, you have to, it's the curriculum. As a teacher, you come into a system usually that you did not design. But in some situations, you have the opportunity to take that curriculum and redesign it in your classroom. So that's why it's very important to educator that's in the classroom. And it's the personality of that teacher that usually flows in the classroom. So if a sensitive issue comes up, you deal with it just like you would in your own family. And there's nothing wrong with talking about it. Mm-hmm. And letting the child vent those emotions. And sometimes it has to go beyond the lesson of the day. And, you might have to include the parent or, you have to do what you have the ability at the time to do. And a lot of times, of course, in the whole system, you're under time constraints. But if you care about your students and you might have to pick up on another day or another lesson, or throughout the day, another subject area that could come up. I think you said about, maybe another sister that called in about knowing math. That's very important. And a lot of times in the primary grade.
Oh, yeah, I think Maika said about math.
Is more on building those skill areas in math and reading more than in the social sciences. So, it's each individual school system and each individual classroom, how you have to deal with it. But like I said, we should always keep in mind what type of student we're trying to develop. And even you could take the situation on the playground when children get angry with each other and they don't share, like you were saying, those principles of kindness and compassion and sharing. Those are the things that you want to instill and lay that foundation for in young children. So as they progress through a system, that they continue to hold on to those. And then when those subject areas come up, when science, social studies, and history come up, they have a different view when they're looking at it and how the teacher pulls those things out in the way she teaches them. It's so crucial, that teacher in the classroom.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you so much for. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I would let my students basically, especially when I interacted, with children of in a higher grade.
Yes.
You let them talk about it, you express their anger, and then give them guidance, because that's why we are older than them. That's why we have experiences. And, a lot of times, children have been traumatized in the classroom because of the attitude of the teacher. But as parents, I know we've had with my children, my grandchildren, going through school systems where they're not the majority, so to speak. But if you teach them basic things, that you're going to your school, I'm expecting this from you. And they know when they come home, you talk about school and you talk about issues something that they could handle. I mean, all the way up into college. My one grandson had a problem with a professor. She accused him of something that he didn't do, and she docked his grades. And my daughter, even his dad, don't take care of it. And he said, "No, I can handle it myself." I said, "That's the more important point if you want the teachers that are teaching your children." And I said, "I want your professor to know that you're not in college alone.
Yes, you got backup.
And it takes a village everywhere you go."
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to let her know that she cannot treat you anyway and not give you due process. Just stop your grade, and then after it was all said and done, she admitted she saw the girl cheat on him. But she assumed because he was African American, I guess, or whatever, she wanted to blame him because it's more believable. And then in the conversation with the professor, she said, "Well, I want to hear your side of the story." And my daughter interjected and said, "There is no other side. You just told us you saw the girl cheating. So that's the end of it. What we want to know is how are you going to correct the mistake and error that you made?"
Yes.
I mean, it's just one instance. It's just how, because people would tell, "Oh, you go right to the president, go right to have her fired and all that."
No.
Well, do you want her to be fired?
Or do you want her to correct the?
Yes. Other people.
Well, I think that's a critical point too. I think that's a critical point too. Even as we teach what happened, are we teaching things just for the sake of people getting angry and punished or reparations or whatever? Are we trying to rectify the behavior so that it doesn't occur again? And I think that's the way to even teach what happened in history. If you teach what was done, and like you say, lay the foundation first, and then as you teach what happened, you can also have discussion as to now what's the best way to rectify this that is still perhaps influencing our society. And I think those kind of classes, you almost can't put a grade on it because it's not like math or science where it's exact numbers. You're talking about opinions. And so just giving a child the opportunity to share their thoughts should be enough for them to earn a grade because they participated in the collective process of thinking and developing solutions. That's my thought on that. But
with all the grades, there are performance kind of assessments now, rather than you have to have so many right on the test.
Yeah.
Tests and things now, the children are being assessed different.
And they should be. And I think that
educational.
Right.
We don't always see it in a predominantly minority community. We don't see that. But usually when you get into other school systems, you do see a different kind of assessment.
And that's another thing. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. And well, I thank you so much for giving your opinion as an educator, because that does give us some great insight. And Kareem, I know you've got another caller, and I've got a couple of more callers as well. But thank you, sister, so much for your input.
Thank you.
And what city are you from?
You're welcome.
What city? And what city are you from?
Oh, a little in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Pennsylvania, Sharon, Pennsylvania.
Oh, Sharon, Pennsylvania. All right. You got knowledge from
North
Sharon,
Pittsburgh.
Pennsylvania, North Pittsburgh. All right. Thank you so much. And Corinne, you wanted to add your thoughts, and then we've got another caller, I think, on your line, and then we've got
I'll
a couple of here.
bring in our caller here on this.
Oh, okay.
On the switchboard 727-309. Montanaya Abdullah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Greetings of peace to you, Kareem, and to Naima, and all the callers and listeners. Praise be to Almighty God. Thank you so much. I'm calling from St. Petersburg, Florida. And I have to say to myself, wow. Because what hit my head was oppression is worse than slaughter. And oppression in words and oppression in the conditions. What are the conditions we're living in, as we ask the question, when do we teach our children? The environment is teaching. The environment of the people, the social environment, is already teaching.
Yeah.
Already teaching. The oppressive language is already teaching. The little cartoons, already teaching. So how do we unscramble those teachings and admit that we as adults are under an oppressive process, that we are striving still to hold our heads up. And I'm saying we now. I am of the quote unquote African descent. And when I hear the flight of language of saying when the slaves came or were brought, or is it better to say, putting one word for the other, adjectively wise, when people were brought from Africa?
Yeah, when people were forcibly brought here, right? Because they didn't bring slaves, and that's a good point. That yes.
Exactly. So when we're speaking about, we've done courses on we now here in the city. I've done courses on the social balance of even talking with one another, coming to the table to understand that some Europeans admitted that they were forced to believe as they believed, even though they didn't want to. So I'm going to say, revelation is very important. When this was speaking about the math, and revelation brings us to the point of teaching human. So when we're teaching a child on the human level, even while one's oppressed, human still supersedes everything else.
Absolutely.
Because the Creator, because of what we have in our heart and mind, that okay, it's going to get easier and easier. Yes, we can stand for peace and love, and it was taught. I have to say, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I have to say that he critically rationalized. I'm using that word, rationalize the system to a point where the love became internal. So love was developed in the community in a way that it could be shown outwardly and so pure to a community of people. So I'm going to stop right there because as young children, human, revelation, and then the intelligentsia has an opportunity to rise and not be oppressed, inshallah.
Well, God willing, we will learn that lesson. Well, thank you so much, Sister Martha. We appreciate you as always. Martha Nyla calling from Florida. Yes, absolutely. Well, let me go to area code 314-677. Grand Rising. Thank you for joining us. Give us your name, where you're calling from, and your thoughts.
This is a PRP join the call.
Oh, well, all right. We're glad you're
here. You had a lady earlier talking about violence. Violence is in your body. When your immune system, your white cells tear up the bacteria and the virus invaders, it don't tear them, it don't talk to them and say y'all need to go. It attacks them and tears them to shreds. That's going on in your body. It goes on in the organisms in nature. It's nothing nice. Matter of fact, the earth was formed with a natural catalytic balance. The dinosaurs went by the wayside of a catalytic balance. That's just the way it is. And I hear people talk about slavery, and so see this critical rate. Here's the first thing that you must understand. And it's true. That what's taught to kids is up to their parents in a school district. The state laws say that. The books, instructional material, and the curriculum is up to the school district. Not the teachers, not the principal, not the superintendent, not the state board of education or the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It's up to that school district, which is the parents and stakeholders. If they don't want their
your children taught certain things, like sex education and how to use dildos and all this stuff and anything else, that's their business. And, you know, you just got you making claims about slaves. Africans that was brought here could have been slaves already.
Enslaved by their own people. That was happening. And I think that's part of teaching what happened. Because if you had wars in one nation, and
you gonna teach what happened on American soil, or you gonna teach what happened on the world stage? So
that's a good point. That's a good point.
You're gonna teach that Africans taught the world slavery.
Well, no, the world already knew. Like you said, like Martha just said, human history. Everybody on the planet has enslaved somebody, so that's human history. It didn't just happen. We like to think we're the only ones, but it didn't just happen to us.
Well, how can you teach the first civilization started in Africa? You can't say that slavery wasn't taught to the rest of the world. And we taught the world to read, taught the world to write, taught them arithmetic, taught them agriculture. Slaves were used in agriculture.
You know, well, I'll let you finish your comment. And I want to inject a thing, but let me let you finish what you have to say.
Let me say something else too.
Yes.
You talk about the Indians. Indians were fighting each other when settlers came here, and settlers came here, many of them under pretense that God gave them this country, which they had a right to do. Everybody else did.
Blame their greed on God.
Yeah, people did that. Y'all have the whole program. I just called in. When you talk about war,
it's Bogart.
Yeah, I'm gonna let us. I am, but you break me up in the middle of my sentence, I'll leave something out, then I'm not teaching right.
Oh well, we don't want you to lose your train of thought. Go right ahead.
In the Civil War, you had 646,000 Union casualties, 454,000 Confederate casualties. Well, if those Union casualties were fighting against slavery, and you had men and boys that lost their life, and when the men lost their life, they left a wife and children to fare by themselves. Should not they be paid reparations for ending slavery?
Well, should anybody be paid reparations based on the fact that everybody participated in some form of harming somebody at some point in time? Like we were talking about slavery. It's so if everybody's ancestors have done wrong to somebody at some time, whether they be on the Asian continent, the Europe, Eurasia, or whichever continent you want to call it, Africa, India, the North or South America, if everybody did wrong to somebody at some point in time, can anybody claim reparations, or do we just need to forgive and then not do it again? Isn't that what we want to teach our children? Like, just don't do it again. That's what we want.
Yeah, you teach American history. Let me tell you something else. I heard somebody the other day talking about.
Quickly, we got to take a break.
Tuskegee experiment. How they done the black strong. I never hear nobody talk about how white males in the 1930s was injected with malaria in order to cure their system. You never talk about that. It's about how they did not. And first of all, people get it messed up. They say that black man was injected with it, but they were not. They weren't treated. But you don't talk about the white male that was injected with malaria under a procedure that create high temperature in order to cure their system. Nobody talks about that.
Well, you just did. You just told us.
You don't talk about the Indian slave master.
That's true too.
You don't talk about the black slave master.
That's true too. That all those are very true points. Which brings us, we got to take a break, and then we'll come back, and then 312-222 will come to you next. But Bianca, you make a Excellent point. And this is what we're saying. If everybody has done wrong at some point, do we point out just racial injustice, or do we talk about human injustice? Do we put it on that platform so that children can learn ethics and values and not identify either good or bad behavior within any particular race or nationality or ethnicity, because it's based on a scale that has to do with correct human behavior? And can we teach that in such a way so that we can tell what happened without any particular group feeling shame or guilt or blaming anybody as if they're the only ones who did wrong? Can we do that? Well, we got to talk about that when we come back. 312-222, you're next. And then Kareem, let me know if you got somebody else on your switchboard. We want to make sure we get all ideas.
Yes, 724-866.
Okay, well, we'll have them right after. And we're creating a curriculum, people. We're taking all your comments into consideration because we want to create a curriculum that teaches the highest standard of humanity. That's our goal. So we welcome all of your input in this process. This is what we are doing. We'll be right back after this quick break. So stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back in just one moment. Stay with us.
We have an opportunity to transform the whole global society in the next 50 years. 50 years from now, the earth will be populated by a new generation of adults, many of whom are yet unborn. Our mission is to nurture them in childhood with love, guidance, and protection, and to raise them in healthy, happy families. If we impart values of compassion, generosity, and respect for fellow human beings in the next generation of children, they will create a world where people can live together in peace. This is our goal. Be a part of the transformation. Get your copy of the book, The Female Solution. Go to www.naimalatif.com. That's www.naimalatif.com. Do you want to live in a world without war? Join our global peace movement. Heavenly Culture World Peace Restoration of Life transcends culture, religion, ideology, and other boundaries to achieve a peaceful harmony in the global society. HWPL is committed to bringing world peace and cessation of war through peaceful dialogue between religious groups. I'm Director Shinsu Kim of the HWPL Chicago branch of North America. Join us for our next gathering. Call 773-580-1501 and be a part of the movement for world peace. Email us at chicagohwpl@gmail.com.
Hi, this is Jared Alexander.
And I'm Latif. Meet people like you who are making a positive difference in the world. Watch us every day on the Media Connections at www.youtube.com/themediaconnections.tv. There are people who choose to make a positive difference in the world. Our job is to bring you their stories to motivate you to do the same. Join us each week, host John Alexander and Naima Latif, as we bring you the educators, entertainers, elected officials, religious leaders, and community activists whose works are transforming this world. Find out how you can make a difference too. Be inspired. Watch the Media Connection on Mondays at 5 p.m. and Tuesdays at 12 noon on cable TV channel 19 in Chicago and other cities. Check your local cable.
Oh man, God sent the monthly sun bill today. This sunlight is really expensive, especially during this season. I'll probably have to work overtime to pay it.
Well, you better pay it on time. We don't want the sun to go out and we're sitting up here all day in the dark. Wouldn't it be terrible if God charged us for sunlight?
energy home and save tremendously on your electric bill. Take a look at your electric bill. Would you like to reduce or possibly even eliminate that cost altogether? Let one of our solar consultants show you how. Call today, 312-849-3456, and schedule a free consultation. That's 312-849-3456.
We are back. You're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. I'm Naima Latif, along with my co-host Kareem Hamid and our American Muslim 360 family. And we have asked the question, how can Black history be taught without blame, shame, or guilt? And is there an age-appropriate way to teach some of the worst episodes in human history? Well, let's go back to our phone lines, and let me take this call at 314-222. Grand Rising. Thank you for joining us today on the Female Solution. Give us your name, where you're calling from, and your thoughts on this topic.
My name is Anita Collins, and I'm calling from St. Louis, Missouri.
Welcome, Anita.
And also, as a former sub-teacher, I wanted to just add that it is how the teacher that called before and the lady that called also before. It's how it's taught. I have lived as a student as well as a sub-teacher. And in classes, just in history, we are the purveyors of war. Whole history book talks about wars that were initiated falsely. Then when we talk about how and what age was appropriate not to traumatize our children, the first thing I would sincerely say is to give them their rightful name. Don't call them by what someone else is. No matter what level, what age, give them their names. Black history is proof of our autonomy, our existence. I met a young man who was taught right now, this century, earlier this year, and he was a leader of a community group of young men, and he read or was taught by someone that Black history was about not including all other cultures. That's not what Black history was about. Black history was proof that what you teach us right now, the Female Solution, it teaches us our autonomy. And it's so, that's the very essence, the foundation. It's not to exclude somebody else's history. The word is Black history. Is it Nubian? Is it African? Is it Moor? Don't use the S word, just like you don't use the N word. Don't describe anyone as the S word. There was enslavement. It was a business arrangement. Different plants that was, and ink and the manufacturing of products that was created, that was a business. It was a business proposition from an overflow of agriculture, the peanut. It wasn't against or for anyone. It was a business process. And when people rejected the S word and the status of the S word, then laws were put into place, and they were named different things. Jim Crow, all these names still exist today, in the 21st century. To camouflage, we call them forefathers, but they were S owners, plantation owners. These were And when we look at ourselves and we look at each other, and when we hear your beautiful explanation of what the female solution is about for the next generation, you're talking, you're teaching us business. I just learned, and I'm a very poor handler of monies, and I've been endowed many, many times. I gotta redo it again, but I just learned at my tender age of 78 the discipline of saving, and it starts with $1. But I won't try to teach that because this is not my program. But it has been such a joy listening every time you recite it, every time you recite the female solution for the next 50 years, seeing our own autonomy grow and develop and expand. We are purveyors of peace. We are the vicegerents of justice, peace, love, and virtue. And thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Anita Collins. We appreciate you for sharing. Your ideas are valuable. Yes. Now we've got a few comments from our Facebook viewers. Do you have a caller on your switchboard you need to get to as well, or some comments? I've got to share just a couple of comments from. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a very brief commentary. At any age, we can deconstruct the color coding and the value system of color coding for human beings.
Right.
We can deconstruct the color coding and then share with our children and us the errors that was made in that system of color coding. That encompasses everyone. So introduce the children and us to the human being, and that we should not be classified by color coding. So any child can grasp that if it is explained properly. I'll stop right there.
Oh.
Explain the errors of
Right.
what took place under such a system.
Right. I think that is important, because children don't learn to see the differences as something negative until adults teach them that. And they don't care. Oh, your hair is different. Oh, your skin is different. But no big deal. Let's go play, So you're right. We can do that. And a few comments that we've got from and of course Susie Mayberry, our dear sister, says, "Greetings, Mother Collins." She greets our previous caller who shared so much insight, and she says, yes, what we had was international merchants. I mean, it was a business, and we can even teach the ethics of that. How ethical is it to sell another person, break up their family and sell them? So at the age appropriate thing, we can talk about that, and we can also talk about the inventions of many different people, and certainly the African people who came here, many who were transported against their will, did some fabulous things. And Tyrone Jackson.
System of slavery. We need to express the distinction that this system of slavery enacted in this country is a unique distinction.
Right,
Yes,
because they broke up families, and I think
it did not break up families.
Yes.
People could marry. It was only for a certain period of time. You could actually purchase your freedom. But this system of slavery here, it is called the peculiar system of slavery in America.
Right. Because
so I'll stop right there.
Right, because the intention was to create a human being who would not know their power as a human being, and like Maika was talking about the elephant. When you train somebody to not believe in their own power, then when they get to be an adult, they will still see themselves as weak and powerless. And that's what the design was, to see if that's what you could do. Create somebody who would, in fact, be in their minds perpetually a slave. But of course, it didn't work. That's why we're here today. So now, Tyrone Jackson brings up I suppose, a political point about Adam Clayton Powell Jr. threatening to expose MLK and Bayard Rustin. I guess there was rumored to be gay, and somehow, threatened to expose it unless the Democratic convention marches were canceled, and King canceled them, and Rustin quit the Christian Leadership Conference. And he speaks of that and says that there's a striking kinship between our movement and Margaret Sanger's early efforts. Says that as a quote of Martin Luther King Jr. That his comments bring up the question of, if you're going to talk about someone in history and say something that people deem negative, should you say that? And one of the reasons why I think about that is because when it came out how brutal Christopher Columbus was, and Italians had seen him as a hero, many Italians were angry because they had been taught that this was a hero, American hero. He brought civilization to the savages and all that. That was how they were taught. So if you have a historic figure and someone says, or it becomes widely taught that this person did something other than what people might admire, should you teach it, not teach it, talk about it, not talk about it? Because there's so many things that come up with historic figures. And then are some things that you talk about, are they historically relevant, or are they gossip that could perhaps put a person in a less than heroic light? What things should be considered as necessary to know or even approach? Because you have a lot of books that come out about people after they're long gone. Some of them reveal things about them that people didn't know. Some of them reveal things that actually alter how you view history, such as the Christopher Columbus situation, the people that he murdered. My sister teaches a diversity class in college, and one of her students said, after she taught about what happened with Christopher Columbus, the fact that he never got here and he killed people, her student was dismayed. White students said, well, I was always taught that Christopher Columbus was the hero. He was I was always taught America was the good guys. So now, how do you deal with what has been taught before that was not accurate? How do you deal with correcting behavior of groups between each other? And how do you deal with disinformation that might be designed to diminish someone's achievements? All of these things as educators. So I'm going to put that thought out there.
Naima,
Yes.
we have to keep our eye on the prize.
Keep your eye
None
on
of us
the
are
prize.
angels. We all have thoughts. But what is the bigger picture? The freedom of a whole people. So I would not be a victim of nitpicking the flaws in us as human beings. Keep our eye on the prize.
Keep our eye on the prize.
We're
seeking to create excellent human beings and give our children a foundation of what is excellent behavior, and at the same time use history as a lesson to understand what happened and what should not happen in the future, and correct any remnants of what may still be happening. So area code 773-737. I do believe this is the illustrious Mama D. Grand Rising.
Well, hallelujah, greeting. Global Transformers, Grand Rising. Boy, I love that introduction. That word is what?
The illustrious.
Pronounce that without Southern accent. In the Black History Bible book, whose hero is a woolly-haired man with bronze-colored feet to match his bronze-colored face, that you shall know the truth, and it will make you free. Not set you free. That's something somebody else can do.
It will make you free.
You free. You won't have any other choice. So we have no problem teaching the birth, life, and crucifixion. Gruesome crucifixion of a man on a cross. Our Black hero. And so that's the whole thing. I won in 1974. I won a International Black Rights Award, the same one Sam Greenlee, author of Who Sets Out the Door. We won the same award that same night. Now, I won it for a Black story told in a poem. Now, I also wrote a story, play story in skit. I think I'm gonna have to republish it because it was all about teaching slavery to preschool age children. It's very simple. You break it down in a way that they can comprehend it. I told them that long ago, before they were born, before anybody that they knew was born, Black people, there was something called slavery. Oh, it makes it so scary, that word. They thought we want to cry. It was a sad time. It was a bad time. It was a time that made people mad. That time was called slavery time. People were going to the store and buying people like you go to the store and buy groceries. They would buy a dad, and they said, I'm going to buy him. He's strong. He can do a lot of work for me. And the dad would say, oh, please don't buy me. I have a family. They love me. They need me. But the slave owner would say, I don't care about your family. I don't care about you. You must work all the time. And I won't pay you. Not one cent. And I just went on to the mother and to the children. When he got to the children, he said, I'll buy this little boy, this little girl. They're cute. They're healthy. And the children would say, oh, you are a mean man, slave owner, and this is terrible of you. Along that order. You get what I mean?
Wow. You know, Mama D, I'm so glad you called in. I'm saying I'm so glad you called in because Mama D has been a preschool teacher. So the question of how do you teach these awful things in an age-appropriate way, she has done this and she knows how to do it so that children can see it as a story, but also see it from the child's point of view, or even see it as the basic, this was sad, this made people mad, this, and they can identify and then talk about it as children. But, you mentioned the Jesus story. When I think about it, I was traumatized as a child, as a 3-year-old. When I heard that story, I was traumatized listening to that. I was horrified. My soul just was broken, just knowing that this is what happened to a good person. But that's another conversation for another day, and we'll talk about that. How to teach what happened.
In church every single year, and children are that traumatized. They just depending on the way it is told and why it is told and what was the good outcome. The moral of the story is what takes the trauma.
That's Mama D, that's one of those.
And that's why people have to have some good conduct.
Yes.
So people don't have to die for their sins because they should be doing all that bad stuff. Good sin is always a way to talk to children and break it down in a way that they can get it. Like the thing of a little pig let me in. So I would go back to the same thing. You must work all the time.
That's wrong.
And the daddy and the mama and the children, they was all dead white. Oh, no, I hate, because I have this, that, and the other too. And the children got it. And it had no problem getting out there. But then God sent them people like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, and she showed them how to hide them, and she used the underground railroad, and everything went on. And I had no photo in that group. Play story as children got it just fine because I gave the definition of words. The people that fought against it, they were called abolitionists.
Yeah.
And just as the story went on, you gave the definition of the word, and they are sitting there, captivated, and then they got out of it. Little pig, let me in,
Well, I think, Mama D, I think just like a sister said earlier, so much depends on the skill of the teacher in the classroom. And you have that skill. I think teaching young children is definitely a skill, especially teaching what could be complicated. We've got to go, but I want to thank you. And you know what? Next week, we have the beginnings of a curriculum, the New Earth curriculum. We're going to talk about that in some future show because we really do need to teach a higher level of thinking, and we need to correct some disinformation about history because we've been on this planet a whole lot longer than we've been taught. And there's a lot of disinformation we've been taking as fact. So we have to be ready. As it's been said, the truth will make you free. So last comments, Brother Kareem?
Yes, history is a lesson that we can learn from and hopefully perform better. Let us remember we are human beings. We are greater than color. We are human beings. Thank you, my sister.
Thank you so much. Yes, we are reflections of the creator of the universe. Let us reflect only love. And thank you for your comments. And Susie Mayberry Parker says the Pledge of Allegiance is not what our children want to know about. Our children must know about our heroes and sheroes who stood for freedom. Yes, so as you taught Mama D, and of course, she says they want to know about themselves and how they can help the world with their talents. That is it. We are teaching children how they can be their best selves. That's the purpose of education. Thank you so much. We appreciate all of you. We will continue to create the world as it should be. We are global transformers. I'm Naima Latif with the Female Solution, along with our co-host Kareem Hamid. We thank all of you. Join us tomorrow for Soulful Solutions with Dr. Debbie Green. We'll see you then.
On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussion. Thank you for using thanks to our radio family behind us from all around the world. We say thank you. Our family in China, Cheshire, India, Japan, Russia, Spasiba, Germany, Danke, Poland, Dziękuję, France, merci, Spain, gracias, Italy, grazie, Egypt, shukran, Ghana, ragazzi, Nigeria, Eshe, South Africa, Nyabonga, Senegal, Kenneth, Kenya, Asante, Israel, Toda, Pakistan, Shukriya, Afghanistan, Tashakor, Saudi Arabia, Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you. And may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.
The Female Solution Global Radio TV Show invites you to an invigorating conversation with our team of hosts Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Start your week with Monday Morning Mindfulness with Zelda Speaks. Tuesdays, Self-Cell Care with Jody Susan. Wednesdays, Repairing Broken Families with Naima Latif and co-host Kareem Hamid. Thursdays, Soulful Solutions with Dr. Debbie Green. And Fridays, Health and Wellbeing with Beata. Saturdays, tune in 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. First Saturday, Success Strategies with Jana. Second Saturday, Wendy Williams Esquire on relationships. Third Saturday, Move Around with Deborah. And fourth Saturday, Wisdom with Mama D. Join us Sundays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time for Soul Purpose Healing with Beata. Call in and comment 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to the host and be a part of the solution.